Welcome to another episode of Write and Accelerate. Today I have a guest. I am going to be talking to Maria Secoy, who is the founder of All Write Well. All Write Well helps authors turn their passion for prose into a sustainable, profitable business without them getting overwhelmed. And during this conversation, I actually learned quite a bit. Those of you who've been listening to me for a while know that I am a growth marketer. So for me, social media and marketing is very much built into my author career and my development when it comes to writing. But I also know that this is not a way that is sustainable for some authors. If you are not if you feel like marketing and I don't know, showing up on TikTok every day or on Instagram or whatever, if that is too much for you and if that is draining your energy, you should probably be focusing on writing. And this is one of the key things that we're talking about in this episode. So without further ado, let's dive in. This is such an interesting conversation, so I hope you enjoy it. Well, let's get started, Maria, with tell me a little bit about who you are.
I started out as a teacher of all things, like most mundane profession ever. But what I really found, I worked with middle school students primarily, and I loved watching them learn to communicate and watching them really start getting into reading and writing when they were given choices about what they wanted to do. And what I really found was that human beings in general have a very natural creative spirit. But what we do as educators to support that, build that, and encourage that is tragic on a good day. So I really dove deep into researching how do we support writers? And fast forward 10 years, my research, I worked with a PhD professor at a university. Our research was published in a national peer-reviewed journal. And now I left teaching in 2022. And now I put all of that background to work for adult writers. And I get to work with adult writers and authors to help them launch those author careers that I think all of us dream about, where it's like, I don't necessarily want to be rich and famous. I mean, that would be cool. But more, I don't even necessarily want to do this full time, but I want to be able to share the stories that live in my head with the world around me. And so I have the honor of helping people through All Write Well, which is the organization I started in 2022 that supports authors building sustainable, lasting author careers that bring them joy while earning more than they spend. Because too often, even when finances aren't our primary goal, too often writing for adults becomes the world's most expensive hobby. And I don't want that for anyone.
Yeah, I know. I know the feeling, like just hiring editors and proofreaders and buying a cover. Oh my God, it's expensive because I mean you can only do so much yourself as an indie author as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but tell me a little bit about, because you talk a lot about how you can turn writing, from a costly hobby into sustainable income. And I guess that's what also you're doing with All Write Well, right?
Yes, absolutely. So the whole idea, I too often I see new authors leap in to all of the six-figure author strategies. And I understand why. Like there's that whole saying, success leaves clues, right? Like if you want to end up where somebody else already is, do what they do, imitate them, and you'll get there. And there is absolutely truth in that, but it neglects the vital steps between brand new nobody and six-figure successful author. And the steps in between those 2 points do not look anything like the final destination. We have to go through a lot of other stuff to get there. And I just really felt like there were not enough people talking about, I never felt like there was a really strong, clear roadmap to get from one point to the other. especially in a way, because we also, most writers recognize that you're not going to go to six figures in a single year. We're looking at a 3 to 5 year minimum to get to that point realistically. And so when you consider that, it's like that journey, that 3 to 5 year adventure better not suck. Because if that is miserable, like nobody wants to be miserable for 3 to 5 years. So for the love of all things, let's put together a plan and a roadmap that brings in intentional growth, that brings in notable milestones for progress and development, and that turn those growth years into their own recognizable, meaningful, rewarding journey that we can celebrate and enjoy along the way. And so a huge part of that is recognizing all of the things that we need to not do. So like, I love Becca Syme's Quit series because she absolutely, like, she is 100% right. The first step is recognizing all the things we need to not do and set those aside. And then, and only then, do we have space on our plate to really dive deeper into the things that will build that really strong foundation. So I see so many new authors trying to learn ads instead of really understanding the publishing industry, the difference between an ebook, a paperback, an audio edition, and a translation, how ISBNs work, international copyright laws, all of those rights and licensing options. We are so much more successful long term if we put in the time and effort to understand those while we're just starting them. So like, rather than trying to have to learn all of those at once, let's learn ebooks and paperbacks first. And because ISBNs work very differently with those two products, and I do always talk about this in terms of business, because that's one of my whole things is it's like, if you're looking at this through a business lens, then we can all recognize I probably shouldn't invest $7,000 or $8,000 into a product that I'm going to turn around and sell for $5,000. Like, all of us can do the math to recognize that that's probably not going to end well for us financially.
Yeah.
But too often we lean so heavily into the artistic heart of our work. And I do believe that, like every writer, it is coming from that artistic, creative center in our soul.
Yeah.
And that is important. And so when I'm creating, when I'm writing, because I've got, I think I'm up to, depending on how you count, I have like 18 to 24 books out, again, depending on whether you count short stories and that kind of thing and all of that. But you know what, when I'm writing, I'm 100% in that artistic, creative center. Do not think about finances and budgeting and your business choices while creating your books. Like, that's not how we do that. But there are also times when we as authors need to also be financially responsible for our work. And I always look at it as being a good steward of the finances that make my books possible, right? Because I always tell people, I'm like, what if your 31st book is the one that's going to change the world? What if your 31st book is the one that's going to save a couple people's lives because it just resonates with them exactly the way they need to, or it makes them realize or see the world around them differently? If you run out of money after publishing 15 books, the world's never going to see that 31st book. So I don't look at it as, you know, it's bad to get a cheap cover. I look at it as, if you are in a financial position where a cheap cover is what's going to allow you to write and produce multiple books over the next several years, then that might be the very appropriate compromise that we make to be financially, fiscally responsible for our work and ensuring that we can continue to share our words with the world. So when we look at it that way, then suddenly it's like, okay, my goal with book one is not to sell 1 billion copies. My goal with book one is to develop my own book production process. What do I need to do to revise my books? How does my writing process lead into my revision process? And the other thing that I see authors neglect is they think of marketing as something that comes after the book is done. And if you are waiting to think about how you're going to market the book until after the book is done, you've already lost. Like that's not good. So I also really look at and work with authors to help them determine when is it appropriate to bring business mindset and marketing elements into your writing process in ways that will not step on the toes of that creative heart, because we never want to allow those other pieces to stifle that. But we also need to recognize, hey, when I'm going through and revising, and I specialize in romance, I write romance. The other authors that I've got 2 other authors that I partner with All Right Well, and they both write romance as well. And so that's kind of where that's like, there's always that teacher's pet, and romance authors are our teacher's pet. We love them. I mean, there's just something about a romance. Like, who doesn't love a happily ever after, right?
Yes, me too.
So that's always the kind of core. We work with writers across all fiction genres. Right now, I'm actually even working with a nonfiction author and a poetry writer because she's putting together a compilation of poetry. And they're like, your business advice applies to us, even though we have to tweak and adjust it because our genres are a little bit different. So one of the big things that I really have learned is when we are revising the meet cute scene of a romance novel, we should think about how this is going to read as marketing copy.
Yes.
And if we take that exact same scene and we do one extra round of revision through the lens of marketing, how are readers, if this is the reader's first impression of the book, if I only give them a 300-word snippet of this, what's that going to do for them? And then suddenly, as we're revising, we're pulling out and removing anything that might be distracting. We're really consolidating that scene, making it very concise, making it very poignant. And then all of a sudden, when it comes time to share on social media, it's like, oh, this is easy. I just share this scene with a variety of images. And then when that works, it's like, oh, hey, guess what? Now I have the copy for my Facebook ads. And it all started during revision.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. I write in Swedish, but now I'm translating some of my books to English. And whilst doing that, I am going through and just taking those snippets and putting them in a document for TikTok and stuff. But also I have a marketing background, so everything with me is marketing from like the day I decided to become an author. But I also know that most people can't have their marketing head on all the time, because that's not how normal people work. They can't both be, filming themselves while writing and doing it live. Like, that's too much. You have to focus on the thing that matters. And I think Rebecca Symes says it very well. Like, you have to know if your writing is the thing that is going to push your career further. And I think that you also have some, like, that is your philosophy with the 4 books per year and publishing as a marketing strategy. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because that's really intrigued me.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you just said there is absolutely perfect. That idea that we always need to kind of have that little bit of marketing in the back of our mind. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. Writers, if we are creating, we cannot have our marketing hat on. We cannot have our business hat on, because it will stifle our creative voice. And so it's really important. And I think too often new authors in particular don't spend enough time learning themselves in terms of where can I bring my marketing hat and my marketing or business perspective into my book production process, that it won't stifle my creativity and it will actually enhance the final product and make readers happier and make the entire business more successful. And so the idea behind 4 books per year, and I just call the method 4 books per year because for as creative as I am, like naming, I'm definitely one of those authors who keeps a book of like 10,001 baby names beside my desk at all times, because I always have to come up with new names for people and things and places. And so I'm definitely one of those authors that I'm like, look, I can write you a 100,000 word story in like a couple months. Please don't make me title it myself. That's brutal. So I call it the 4 books per year method. It ultimately boils down to the concept behind it is that we can use our publishing schedule as our primary marketing engine, especially early in our career. And it's important to say, as I said at the beginning, where we start and where six-figure authors are two very different ecosystems, two very, very different locations. And the path between the two requires traversing a range of biomes, if you will. I always think of it like Minecraft, and I know, but I have a kid, and I think a lot of writers are also parents, and so if your kid has ever played Minecraft, you know that the world has like all these different environments, and you have to travel through the environments, and each environment has different resources and different challenges, and that is very much so the path between I'm a brand new author and I'm an experienced six-figure author. So if you ask any experienced six-figure author, they will tell you that there is one key heavy lifter that makes the majority of their income happen. Oftentimes it is ads, oftentimes it is TikTok. It will be different for different, but those tend to be the two most common ones that we hear. And too often new authors hear that and they go, oh, I can get there faster by just starting ads right now.
Yeah.
Except that if you don't go through all of the necessary steps along the way to get to that destination, you won't collect the resources. You won't work through the challenges to have what you need for those ads, for TikTok to be successful. And so I look at it and I go, okay, realistically, I don't know about you, but I live in a world where my mortgage lender demands that I pay them every month or I don't have a roof over my head. And they don't really care what new ideas I want to explore or whether or not I'm experiencing writer's block. They seem to insist that my bills are due no matter what. So I also look at it through that lens, especially as a former school teacher. I mean, public school teachers, I did not make much money. So I actually wrote professionally. I wrote for hire to supplement my income for almost a decade before I started publishing under my own name. So when I started publishing under my own name, I was very cognizant of the fact that we all have ultimately two resources. We have time and we have money. And we need to be very intentional and very wise about how we invest that time and that money to get to where we want to go. Because we can and will run out of both potentially if we don't use them wisely. So I looked at it and I said, okay, I want to write. I don't want to be a social media guru. I don't want to be an ads expert. I don't want to look at data all day. I want to write. So let's start with that. And then I looked at, and because I had been ghostwriting for a while, I had some really good conversations with some really, really generous authors who, some of whom were very, very successful, some of whom were abysmal failures. In some cases, they were both using my writing. So I was writing books for both of them. Which was the very first moment where I looked up and I was like, obviously, this has nothing to do with writing quality because they're both, I mean, like I'm writing under for both of these people. Why is one making six figures and the other one struggling to scrape up 6 cents? What's the difference? And what it all comes down to is how the authors chose to start and grow. And so from that, I realized very quickly, if we can stay focused on our writing and our book production process first, that gives us the foundation of learning little things like my meet cute cop makes great marketing copy. My meet cute scene makes fantastic marketing copy. If I do one extra round of revision there, I will be financially rewarded down the line when it's easier to sell that book. Well, if I'm busy trying to learn Facebook ads, I'm not going to get the opportunity to figure that out. So I said, okay, I also, around this time is also when I discovered Becca Syme. And I immediately looked around and went, okay, what can I quit? Because I'm telling you, she's got it right there. So I looked around and went, what can I do without? And I said, well, I hate social media, so I'm not going to do that. And so for my first, let me put it this way. I did not create an author Instagram account until 2 years after I published my first book. I did not create my author Instagram account until I was publishing book number 7. Uh-huh.
Whoa.
Uh-huh. And it was because I said, okay, I'm not going to touch social media. I'm not going to touch any paid ads. I'm also not going to try and figure out newsletters, subscriber lists, anything like that. I'm going to figure out my book production process because I know that I can collect followers on Amazon and that Amazon will push my book for me for a very short window of time. So Amazon has said the 30 days leading up to your release, if you have your book on pre-order, if you let Amazon know, hey, this book is releasing 30 days from now, they will start showing that book to readers they think might be interested in it. Now, I want to point out that if they don't understand who might be interested in it, they're going to show it to the wrong people. And this is where understanding that marketing clarity really does matter from day one. Even when we aren't learning ads, we aren't like that piece of who as readers will this appeal to? Who are my comp authors? Those are the first things authors need to figure out. And it's going to take 3 to 5 books to figure that out. Because that's just the reality of as we discover ourselves as writers. So I said, okay, I can use Amazon to promote the 30 days of pre-order. Then Amazon will celebrate it as a new release, and I'll get 60 days of push after the fact. So I get 30 days of Amazon pushing the pre-order, 60 days of Amazon pushing it as a new release. That's 90 days. If I write 4 books a year, I'm publishing a book about every 90 days, which means I always have Amazon marketing, promoting, pushing one of my titles. Just as one book falls off the 60-day cliff, Amazon starts promoting the pre-order for the next book. And then I went, okay, because of my background as a ghostwriter, there was a period of time, it was almost 2 years, where I was writing historical romance as a ghostwriter, and I was producing a book a month. So I was, 80,000 word novels due every 30 days, every single month. On top of that, I would occasionally pick up some content writing, just bring in a little extra money. And that was while I was teaching full time. So I was teaching full time and writing 20 to 25,000 words every week. And so people always ask, and I'll go ahead and save you because I can see it on your face. So for those listening to this in podcast form, our wonderful host here is looking at me like I have lost my mind. And I can just see, just because I've had this conversation enough times, I'm guessing there's also a little bit of judgment happening here where you're like, man, those must have been really terrible words.
No. I recognize myself. So
that's even better. That's fantastic. So and that tends to split into one of 2 categories. Any writer who is written for hire knows exactly how that works.
Ghostwrite also. So
100%. So yes, you know how this goes. For those who are like, this is unfathomable, how does that happen? I got up at 5:30 every morning, got ready for school, went to school. I taught all day. I got home between 4 and 4:30 in the afternoon. My son, I helped him with homework. We made dinner. We sat down to dinner between 5:30 and 6. I scarfed down my food and then retreated. And at the time, we were living in a 2-bedroom, 3rd floor walk up just outside Washington, D.C. So teeny tiny apartment. And this was as the pandemic was hitting. So we have my entire family in a 2-bedroom apartment, all trying to work from home. And I am teaching during the day and writing 20 to 25,000 words evenings and weekends. So we had a walk-in closet in the master bedroom. And we set up one of those folding TV trays that you can buy at the big box stores, along with a chair from our dining room table. And so I actually have a photo of this room, and I'm surrounded. It fit perfectly within the like U-shaped framework of clothing. So I have clothing on 3 sides of me, a door on the 4th side of me, and I'm just wedged in there in the dining room chair with my little TV tray with my computer on it. But I would retreat back there, and my goal was I had to write 5,000 words, 4 to 5 evenings a week.
Yeah.
And then sometimes if there was a couple evenings that I couldn't or didn't want to write, I would make up those words on Saturday. And this way I never wrote on Sundays, so it was still reasonable. It wasn't a good work-life balance, but it was manageable. I survived it. And it forced me, because suddenly I'm sitting there looking at my computer going, okay, I can have my evening glass of wine after I finish my 5,000 words. I can go watch TV and relax with my husband after I finish my 5,000 words. And I had done my day job already, and I had spent quality time with my son. I had had dinner with my family. So I had met all of those requirements. There were nights when my husband went to bed and I sat there and wrote through tears because I was so tired and I wanted to go to bed, but I had to finish. There were also nights where I got to a point where I was like, look, this has to get done because I'm going to go enjoy my wine and time with my husband. And so I got to a point where I could crank out 5,000 words in 3 hours. So I could write from 6 to 9, 6:30 to 9:30 and still make it out to the living room to enjoy a little bit of my evening. That really allowed me, when I looked at the way the Amazon algorithm works and the way Amazon does ultimately support new authors, when new authors have the foundational understanding of how Amazon works and how they can use it to their advantage, which is like the number one thing that I teach in all of I have an entire sequence of indie author courses that are essentially about developing your book production process while letting Amazon do a lot of the heavy lifting for you in other stuff so that you can focus on really figuring out how your writing process looks and how you build marketing into it. So when I looked at that, I knew that I could meet whatever writing schedule I needed to. So 90 days to produce a book, I was like, I can do that. No problem. I developed that. I also, immediately started working with other authors. And the very first thing is, hey, I can't write a book in 90 days. And that's absolutely fair. We found the 4 books per year method works just as well with 3 books as it does with 4. It can work with 2 books a year. You have more of a lull where Amazon isn't really helping you. So you're going to see your revenue dip more in between books. But if you're just getting started, you're growing your first 100 readers. That's okay. Like, that's not the end of the world. Put in the time you need, because then once you got that book production process, you can set release dates with confidence. You don't have to think about, what do I need to do next? When do I need to start my cover design? When do I need to reserve time with my editor or with my proofreaders or with my beta readers? When do I need to let my ARC team know that advanced copies are coming their way? None of those are questions. You don't have to make any of those decisions anymore. I have a chart where it's all lined out for me. I also have a template chart that is designed as a baseline for other authors to use to negotiate. Maybe they work a little faster, maybe they work a little slower. It's meant as a starting point. So it gives them the framework to adjust for them. And again, that's in my Indie Author Basics course. It's in the very first of those indie author courses in my community. And so, when you look at that and it's like, oh, okay, suddenly I don't have to worry about any of that. That's just a process that happens because I've got it set up. Then I have time to start sending out a weekly newsletter. And I don't suffer through that. How many authors do you know that spend months and months with 6 people on their newsletter list and 5 of them are their direct relatives? Right? And that's hard. Like, I'm writing a newsletter to my aunt, 2 of my cousins, my mother, and my very nosy boss. Not the author career I was dreaming of. On the other hand, if you recognize that, hey, I can grow followers, I can still measure that metric, but I can use my Amazon followers at the beginning. It's easier because people are quick to follow you on Amazon. That's an easier ask. So you develop them there. And then once you've got your book production process, you've got a significant number of Amazon followers, 2 to 3 digits. Like, we're not talking 4 figures. We're talking tens, hundreds are great. Then when we release a reader magnet, a short story that's available for free that shows not only can we start a story, but we can also finish it. So we don't want to use bonus content for this. But we pull out that reader magnet and we go to our followers first and we say, hey, guess what? Thank you so much for being one of my earliest followers. I
Yeah.
am so excited that you were willing to pick up my book. You've never heard of me. You picked up my book. You read it. Thank you so much. You are a rock star. As an expression of my gratitude, let me give you this free short story first in exchange for your email address. Well, now I've got a bunch of people who are already interested in it. I put that in the back of some of my books, and suddenly we launch our newsletter, we launch that subscriber list, and we hit 100 subscribers in the first week. That feels so much better. That is so much more successful and so much more mentally encouraging. Plus, we haven't wasted any money trying to collect followers when we don't even know what we write yet. We haven't wasted time trying to figure out book funnel or MailerLite when we need to be figuring out Atticus formatting, KDP, cover design, right?
Yeah.
So when we put these together in this very logical order and progression of growth, we really see that, hey, there is a very clear path, and not just one, there are a million of them. But when we stop looking at the six-figure author destination as a place that we can teleport to instantly, and instead recognize that there is a very long journey from I published my first book to that point, and then go a step further to plan that journey the same way we would plan a cross-country road trip, where we're looking for exciting spots to see along the way. We want those roadside attractions. We're going to stop in and visit people. We're going to have cool experiences. Then suddenly it's like, hey, you know what? Those 2 to 3 years of early growth and building can be just as much fun, can be just as rewarding, can be just as fulfilling as the six-figure destination that we all think we want. And I have met a significant number of six-figure authors who got to that point and realized that they built a monster, much like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein's monster. They've built a monster that they don't actually like. I actually went through that myself. As I mentioned during the pandemic, I actually had the opportunity that summer. I was able to write full time. And so I actually went full time all in on my writing, and I found that I actually really hated it. I was fully intending to publish my own book like that summer, and I chose not to because I realized that that was not a destination that I actually enjoyed living in full time. That's one of the biggest reasons. So I have 2 books available, 2 nonfiction books available, and the Truly Successful Author is the one that is most relevant for the kind of things we're talking about today. And in it, I mean, the subtitle is Build Your Author Career in 10 Hours Per Week. Because when I did say, you know what, I really do want to be an indie author, I just don't want to be a full-time indie author. I looked at my schedule and I said, okay, realistically, how much time am I willing to put into this? And I said 10 to 15 hours. I can do 10 to 15 hours a week and still have time with my family. I said, I'm going to take 4 weeks off per year from writing. I'm going to take 4 weeks of vacation every single year, no matter what, because I'm not going to take my laptop to the beach. I want to, when I go to Disney with my kid, I want to go to Disney with my kid, not hole up in a Disney hotel room for the most expensive writing retreat in the history of ever. So I started with that, and I very quickly realized you don't have to write 25,000 words a week to produce 4 books per year. You can write 10,000 words a week.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you have a strong book production process, I don't skip any of the editing steps. I definitely do heavy revision, multiple drafts of my novels. Are they perfect? No, but you know what? I've seen books that authors have spent decades on that aren't perfect. So I keep in mind that it's an iterative process. And when I look at a book and I go, I wish I would have done that better, instead of lamenting the past book, I look at it and go, hey, you know what? Let's incorporate that writing strategy, that craft skill in my new book, and let's show my readers that I can do it better now, that I've grown over the last few years. And it's very manageable. So I typically spend 10 to 12 hours a week working as an indie author. My full-time job is with All Right Well, supporting other writers and authors. And I publish an average of 4 books a year. if I were writing epic fantasy, I would only be publishing 3 books a year. So I do always like to add that, because people are always like, well, what if my novels are 100,000 word novels? And I'm like, okay, your 4 books per year plan has 3 books per year on it. But like I said, that works just as well. You still use Amazon's algorithm. You can still use your publishing schedule as your primary marketing engine.
This is so interesting. I really like the fact that you have to start with knowing yourself as a writer, because that's something that I started building quite early. And now for me, writing every day is super important because I need to live in the stories. But that has also made me become quite a fast writer, because now, I track everything, I trace everything, so I know how much I write in an hour. I know how, so that is a great system to build around it. But do you think are there any pitfalls I think especially for new writers, they think they want the big writing career. I think a lot of us, dream about it, but then maybe we don't want it in the end. But are there any pitfalls that you see that people can avoid early on?
Oh, absolutely. So the biggest one is new authors should not try and imitate 6-figure authors. Those are two very different places to live. You made a comment just now. You said that writing every day made you a very fast writer, and you love that. And that you also made the comment that your writing rate. You can predict, this is how long it takes me to write this many words.
Yep.
It's really fascinating to me, those 2 metrics. Do you write every day, or are you a not everyday writer? I am the opposite. I can't write every day. If you force me to write every day, I turn into a bumbling idiot who can't use words. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't work for me. I need time. And I think some of it is, and I'm very much so an extrovert. You probably tell by how much I talk. So for me to sit down and write, it definitely fills that need to share my creative soul, but it doesn't fulfill my need to interact and engage with the world. And so if I found that for me, writing every day created an imbalance that didn't work for my mental health, for my creativity, for my happiness, any of that. So both of these things, whether or not we write every day, and our writing rate, how long does it take us to produce X number of words consistently? Those are 2 things that every single successful author I know can tell you. Every single successful author can answer those 2 questions.
Yeah.
So I always tell new authors, can you answer those 2 questions? If the answer is no, you have not developed your book production process yet, and you need to start there. You need to let go of ads, let go of being all over social media, ease up on your newsletter list and all of your subscribers. You need to bring it inward and focus on figuring out your book production process. Because once a writer does that, once an author knows that process, finding time and energy for all of those other things is so much easier.
Yeah.
And then we also can put books out into the world. And because this is the other thing. So I always create, I worked with kids for most of my career. Okay. Most of my analogies relate to children. It is what it is. Most of us have seen a toddler take their first steps, whether that was in person or on social media or wherever, right? How does it end? Every single time. What happens? Kid takes their first couple steps. What do?
They fall.
100% failure rate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We know that a toddler's first steps are going to have a 100% failure rate. So we tell them not to take their first steps. And when they do and they fall down, we yell at them and we tell them that they are terrible failures, right? Not at all. Come on. And I love, like your expression here is the same. Every time I say that, people are always like, well, yeah, that's ridiculous. We celebrate. Okay. An author's first book is like a toddler's first steps.
Yes.
100% failure rate.
Yeah.
Debut novels don't build authors.
No.
Well, they do, but they build the foundation, the invisible part below the earth that none of us can ever see, because most authors end up either unpublishing their debut novel or completely rewriting, re-editing it, and republishing it years later. Okay. So if we know that book one is likely to fail,
Yeah.
because that's part of the process, how many people do you want to read that failure of a book?
That is a good question.
I
But a
don't
few
know about
hundred
you.
read mine, so yeah.
I don't know about you, but if I know that I'm going to fall on my rear end and make an idiot of myself, I'm not going to invite thousands of people to that party.
Fair point.
Debut novels that get 100 readers are like perfect.
Yeah.
Because those 100 readers are enough people to give you feedback, to help you celebrate what you've done. That's a really good number to look at and go, I took so many steps. I published my first book. I got 100 people to read it. Like, I am an author. And we need that celebration. For the same reason that we celebrate toddlers taking their first steps, because it's the only way to get them walking.
Yeah.
Publishing that first book is the only way to become an author. But we don't need 10,000 people to watch us do it, because it's probably not going to go well because it's the first time we do it.
Yeah.
So don't try to collect an audience of thousands. And I see this with new authors. And there was a prime example just this past year. And I don't know if you saw it, it was all over social media, but there was an author who, man, she is a marketing genius. Like, holy cow, she sold 6 figures worth of pre-orders for her debut novel. That is world-class marketing skills. Unfortunately, her first novel was still her first novel, and it wasn't very good. And it didn't end well for her. So again, that is that prime example. If we try to do things out of order, we set ourselves up for painful failure. Most authors avoid that pitfall naturally because they don't have that good of marketing skills. And in this case, that works to their advantage with their first book. But if we can see that coming, don't try and develop those marketing skills until after you've developed the book production skills. And I specifically say book production because it's not just about writing. If you remember my ghostwriting example, writing quality doesn't matter until readers are into the book. We have a million other things that we've got to do to get to that point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh my God. You can maybe think a lot now. I'm like, wow, I can really relate to this. Oh, but also for me, like the Swedish book industry is a bit like upside down from the international one. You know, we are really big on audiobooks. We don't have agents. Like everything's a bit weird here. But that means that once I translate and like go on Amazon, things are actually a bit easier. But that's also like, am I doing it wrong? Should I be focusing on Goodreads instead of TikTok? Like it's a lot of things to relearn because, you know, some things I already know because I work in marketing every day because that's my day job. But it's so much to learn. But like before we part ways, like are there any other advice that you would give? Maybe people who have launched like a few books, so they know their process and they're like now they're on the verge of like trying to make it happen, or like maybe stop not to work every day or something like that. Do you have any advice for those people?
So the biggest one, and I've got, if you go to the All Right Well website, we've got tons of PDFs. I have 2 that are like 99 cents. Actually, I have a few that are 99 cents each. But the 2 big ones I always recommend for people are the 90-day publishing plan, which is a short, like 6-page PDF version of the Truly Successful Author. And so a lot of people will start with the 90-day publishing plan and they'll go, oh, this is good, but I want the full theory and understanding behind it. And then they'll pick up the Truly Successful Author. But I also have in there the 4 stages of an author career as a PDF. That is also expanded on in the Truly Successful Author. So the book gives you kind of both all together and shows you how they work together. But that 4 stages of an author career is really good. And it's set up, that PDF I actually have structured almost like a workbook. So it goes through stage 1 metrics and KPIs, which are those key performance indicators. What metrics matter for an author learning their book production process. And then stage 2, looking at data. And so we go, okay, once you've got your book production process, now we need to iterate. We need to increase our sample size. We need enough data for it to be meaningful so that we can make decisions based on it. Collecting that data requires time to cycle through lots of books and lots of readers. So we need to, and again, this is part of that whole path between the two steps. Once we've got that book production process, we need to repeat it at least 5 to 10 times, collecting data along the way. Looking at who are my readers, what are their comp novels. So as we're doing that, during that data collection process, we're sending out newsletters every single week. And sometimes we're asking our readers, hey, what's on your TBR list? So that we can understand their comps, who else are they reading? And sometimes we're sharing stories and watching open rates. So if I share a story about when I fell in the pond and almost had to call the local rescue squad to come pull me out because I got stuck in the mud up to my waist, and I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but you've no leverage. There is no good way to get out. There's a reason people died in tar pits and quicksand. And apparently ponds can turn into that too if you get down to the muddy bottom. So anyway, I did not. I was able to wiggle myself out. I might have looked like a beached whale while doing it, but I did not have to call the rescue squad to bring out a fire truck and come haul me out of my own pond. I share that story and I look at my open rates, and then I share another story where I was taking my dog for a hike and we run into a rattlesnake, and my dog, who's an idiot, decided to go sniff the rattlesnake's butt because, again, my dog is an idiot. Thankfully, the rattlesnake did not manage to bite the dog, but it was a little bit of a close call. I compare those two open rates and I see that my readers don't care as much about pets. The response to that story about my dog was much lower than the one to me, with potential of EMTs, with a small community involved. And so by sharing those two stories and seeing how my readers respond differently, I can gauge, hey, my readers prefer human interaction. So that is why, and those are real examples. When I released my most recent series is my Taylor Industry series. Linked Hearts is the first book in the series, and I put comedic relief in that book. I had a picture, a mental image, because we have alpaca farms near where I live, and I had a mental image of alpacas. And alpacas as animals, they're real special. They're real smart. And they have big personalities with lots of strong opinions. And so I was like, this is hysterical. So I went ahead and made the male main character an alpaca farmer. And I gave him one alpaca that's a different breed, who is an exceptionally special character. And his name is Butthole, because the male main character, his whole philosophy is, if I'm shouting butthole at him constantly, I might as well just name him that, so at least he'll respond to it. So it made this great comedic relief, and it makes book 1 easy to market and perform really well. But as I worked through the series of 6 books, I had to gauge, how much do I want to bring in the alpacas versus how much do I want to focus on the suspense storyline and the human plot line there. And so I ran that exact test with those 2 stories sent out to my newsletter subscribers to gauge. And so I said, okay, I'm going to pick a couple books at the end of the series where the alpacas come back strong, but I'm going to keep most of the core middle of the series focused on the human drama kind of thing. So that's the kind of data collection that we're doing in stage 2 as an author. By the time we have enough data to be able to say, here's what my readers like, here's who else they read, here's what they all have in common, then we're ready to start making decisions based on that data. And so that's when we shift into that third stage, which is optimizing for profit. That's when we go, okay, I have 112 Instagram followers. It really doesn't matter. I ran a test last year. I posted every single day in the month of February. And my sales were actually lower than they were in the month of August, when I never posted once because I forgot. August got a little busy for me and I just kind of forgot about social media. So when I look at that data, it becomes very clear that for my author business, social media makes no impact.
Mm.
So would it be good to develop some stuff there long term? Yeah, absolutely. Do I need to like be really upset with myself and beat myself up if I don't have
Yeah.
time to post on social media this week? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So, having that data, being able to say, okay, so if I'm in a time crunch,
Mm.
I can remove social media from my
Yeah.
schedule this week
Mm.
so that I can spend more time writing because I know that's not going to impact my revenue. And so that's where we're really optimizing for profit. And then we're starting to expand our offerings. We're realizing, hey, okay, I do need audiobooks, I need translations, and these are the specific languages that I need because I know that I have readers in these countries. And especially you writing from Sweden, the biggest issue when looking at translations is a question of the cultural impact of the
Mm.
story
Mm. Yeah.
because there are cultural differences
Yes.
that will make or break a translation.
Mm.
And so when we are deciding if those people in that country who are English speakers
Mm.
are picking up and enjoying my book in English,
Yeah.
then the cultural elements are going to bridge. They're going to
Mm.
work in
Yeah.
that culture as well.
Mm.
So I can translate my book to that
Mm.
language and it's going to come across, it's going to read well from a
Yeah.
cultural perspective. So
Mm.
I collect that data during the data stage, and then I choose which translations to invest in during the optimization stage so that I start making more profit without wasting money on things that aren't going to work.
That's brilliant.
And then the fourth stage, eventually, once we've built our empire and we're
Mm.
sitting on our throne and looking around going, I'm a 7-figure author and this is wonderful and this is everything that I dreamed of. We also need to recognize that we need to go into the fourth stage, which is maintenance,
Mm.
because every system will erode and backslide if left alone.
Yeah.
So we have to plan for, and I learned this. I had an author come to me, USA Today best-selling author. When she said, I'd really like to work with you, I about keeled over. That was one of those moments like, okay, authors who are listening to this, we've all had that moment the first time a reader comes up to us and recognizes us. The first moment when we're at a book signing and a reader comes running up to our table and is like, I came here for you today. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I got to meet you in person, right? Like that
Mm.
hits something different in us. I don't know. There's no other
Yeah.
experience like it. That is very much so how I felt when this particular author came to me and said, I want to work with you. And then, being the very special person that I am, I looked at them like they were an idiot. And I was like, why would you want to work with me? I don't recommend, we aren't supposed to respond to people that way as a business person, but we also have that moment like total fangirl. Holy cow, this is an author that I like really admire. And what she admit, and the reason why I don't share her name in this
Mm.
context is because she was really struggling.
Mm.
She had a really hard time. She was like, look, I've been doing this for a very long time. I've reached success. And for the last 3 years, my revenue has dropped year over year
Ah.
over year.
Mm.
And she said, I'm in danger of not being able to continue this as my full-time profession. And I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure what to do about it. And I said,
Mm.
oh, let's take a look. And I saw the problem immediately. She
Mm.
had no maintenance plan.
Mm.
So this author had been doing this for a decade, had 70 something books out published. Yeah, but her backlist included like one of her covers had somebody smoking on the cover.
Mm.
That's not like we can't even run ads to that anymore in today's world
Mm.
because the world has grown and changed and evolved.
Yeah.
And there's been no maintenance done on her books. They've
Mm.
never been updated. The blurbs hadn't been updated. The covers hadn't been updated. And so I said, that's the issue. And she said, yeah, I kind of thought that too, but I don't have a clue how to go through
Mm.
updating 70 something books. It took over a year to get them all updated.
Mm.
And during that year, her book production, her publishing schedule,
Mm.
we had to lighten her publishing schedule to build in time and space for that maintenance. So that showed me, I now teach authors
Mm.
to think about that maintenance schedule from day one.
Yeah.
Because, so the way I teach it is I always tell people, assign each series to a month of the year. Okay.
Ah. Mm.
So, for example, my Twisted Willow series,
Mm.
I update every March. And I don't always update it. Sometimes I review it in March and I go, you know what? It's still to market. It's still selling well. It's good. I can keep on keeping on. But there are 4 books in the series. If and when I do, the years that I do look at it, and I'm like, hey, those covers are looking a little dated. We really need to do a cover update. Or I look at the blurbs and I'm like, this, we aren't really writing blurbs like this anymore. We're formatting them differently now. And so I go through, and the most I have to do is 4 in that 1 month. Well, that's very manageable. I can do that. So if I assign each series a month of the year, then I have a growth plan. And until I have 12 series, I have my maintenance schedule built in. And by the time you have more than 12 series, you darn well better have hired a personal assistant, virtual assistant, executive assistant, whatever kind of assistant it is that you like to work with. You need to have hired one so that they can help with that market research for those maintenance pieces, and you can pass it off to them, which means it's no longer on your plate. And this is what I mean with that, when we build strategically, when we recognize, because the other thing is, most new authors, for their first series, they don't have their metadata optimized. Their cover isn't to market to start with. Their blurb isn't great to start with. So if we aren't taking the time then to figure out what really good elements of that book marketing piece world look like, we're going to be behind the 8 ball before we even get started.
Yeah.
So I always tell authors, invest time in figuring that out in your first 3 to 5 books. Do not believe that you can figure it out in your first book. Let me just tell you, you can't. It's not possible. What you are asking yourself to do is be the toddler who runs a marathon at 2 years old immediately, or at 1 year old immediately after taking their first steps. Okay. There's a reason we don't register brand new toddlers who can't yet walk for marathons. Don't do that to yourself. And so I guess that's probably, you asked about biggest pitfall. And that's probably one of the big ones, is that authors, new authors in particular, have to understand that there is professional growth and development that has to happen, and that can only come with time and practice.
That's, great advice. And before we end, I would just like to ask, where could people find you online if they want to learn more about you and your business?
So the 3 places that I always recommend, if you want to interact with me, come join the All Right Well community. It is on Skool, SKOOL.com. So it's not on Facebook. When you join the community, you'll only see that community. So you won't get, if I'm writing, I cannot pull up Facebook. That's one of my writing rules, is if I'm in a writing session, I can't pull up social media. But having Skool, it does not provide those same distractions. And that's why we set up the community there. We also have, myself and the other 2 authors that I work with, we vet all of the answers there. So we make sure that any responses you're getting, even from other members of the community, are well-founded on factual information. So we keep it a really solid space. You can then level up to coaching with me through there. You can join our mastermind for expanding, scaling authors. That's really also geared specifically for romance, because as you start to scale and get bigger, there's big differences between genres. The other place, if you are more, if you aren't as much of a community person, All Right Well's YouTube channel, I release a video every single Saturday, and I talk a lot about the business of being an indie author. And sometimes that means talking about how to increase our writing rate. And sometimes that means talking about how to determine who your comp authors are in a more analytical way. And then the third place, if you're just like, I don't even know, go to allrightwell.com. That's where we've got all the information about everything we offer. That's where you can pick up the Truly Successful Author, the Truly Successful Writer, all of the PDFs I have available. And this year I am also, in 2026, I am launching a few done-for-you options for bits and pieces. So I definitely have so many authors who are like, I'm only going to publish 1 book. I don't want to learn a book production process. I just want to publish 1 book. Well, so in that case, I'm putting together a done for you publishing package where it's like, okay, look, this is not a traditional I'm not going to be your publisher. You're still going to be an indie author. You're still going to own everything, but for, a reasonable amount, I'll handle all of your formatting. I'll make it look professional. I'll make sure it meets industry standards, and I'll walk you through all of the upload process so that you don't have to learn all of that, because you don't need to if you aren't going to do this as a meaningful career kind of thing. I have so many authors who are like, I will pay my left toe in exchange for someone else to write my blurb for me. So that's another one that I'm looking at offering as well this year. So All Right Well's YouTube channel, our community on school, and allrightwell.com are absolutely the 3 places to go to interact with me, to learn more about my philosophy and theory on this, and to pick up resources to help you accomplish it for yourself.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.